Oh, here we go.
Oh shit. Okay, it's being. Oh, I swore again. Fuck. Oh, there. Win. Double win. Don't make a comment, whoever you are. I didn't know it was on. Let me open up YouTube. Okay. That was shocking. Did we understand why that didn't come up right away? Or
No, I just said I don't have permission to stream live.
I bet. Okay.
So,
I'm gonna not look at that because I don't like to look while you talk. I'm gonna listen to you talk today.
you're gonna listen to me talk. You're
Yeah,
gonna talk
because I
too.
always feel like, when the chat's open, I tend to look and then I want to hear at the same time, but I'm clearly not good at multitasking in that eye ear thing. Like, yes. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. You know what I mean? It's gonna be there. So we'll just take a chat break and then take a look-see and then go back to. Okay. So hello everybody. Good evening. Karen here from Quantum Healing with Tina and Karen. Tonight I am here with my beautiful co-host Tina.
Hello.
So we're coming on for episode, I don't know what, 200 and something. And we'd like to talk about matrix pods, soul extractions, abductions, pyramids, cloning, and more. Sorry, I'm trying to sell it. We don't have to because we're actually talking about real life stuff. Pretty intense real life stuff. So I don't want to downplay the experience. I think that's just my coping because of what's happened. So yes. So Tina, what have you got to say about that?
Well, just a strong content warning. This is really strong stuff.
Yes,
So,
I agree. Clearly I'm coping.
yeah, if you feel that you're not ready to hear this, then feel free to click off. But we've put together some interesting puzzle pieces in the last few weeks. I think Iris's session was a big part of that too. If you guys haven't seen that yet, definitely check that out. I know that triggered a lot that came up for me regarding abductions.
Mhm.
And last night, a lot of information started to flood through about the matrix pods, plus what came through when you were here a couple weeks ago, just kind of suddenly, when we were doing a clearing. So
Oh, yeah.
we're gonna talk about that, the information. We'll start there at that clearing and then kind of just go through what has unraveled since then, about the pods, about abductions, how the pyramids fit into that, and this soul extraction that seems to be happening, and the pyramids, which is an interesting connection.
Tie-in, yeah. We come back to the pyramids.
Mhm. So, actually, where we'll start is just in case you haven't heard this story before. When I had my first regression, I landed in a desert scene, and it was, it felt like Egypt.
Mhm.
Um, and what I saw was, as I kind of moved through that scene, was that there was a landing pad. So I walked up to this landing pad and saw this ship coming down. The ship was actually kind of like old looking, kind of like beat up and wonky. Well, anyway, it landed. It was like saucer shape.
Mhm.
It
Like
landed on
traditional saucer shape.
kind of, but not really. It was, well, more dome. It was more
Mhm.
like a dome shaped than
Okay.
anything. Um, and we don't necessarily know if these things that come through in sessions are real or just, kind of a metaphor allegory for what we need to know, right?
Mhm.
But anyway, the ship came down, it landed, the door opened, and three little grays walked out. So I followed the grays. They went inside of a pyramid. It looked like what's it called? The Egyptian pyramid, Giza, on Giza,
Giza, yeah.
the big one. And when I walked inside, I saw that the walls inside of the pyramid were lined with these pods. There were humans inside. They were laying horizontally. So they weren't the stand-up pods, they were horizontal. And the Greys seemed to be monitoring these pods. They were, like had like little clipboards and were like checking things off. I saw myself in one of these pods. I was, laying horizontally, floating, because there's fluid inside. The fluid that I saw was clear, and I was floating inside of this pod.
Is it like saline or like a jelly?
It's a little jelly.
Jelly. Okay.
Yeah.
Like
And
Matrix.
not as thick though. It's
Okay.
not as thick. So I was floating there with my eyes open. I had red hair and green eyes, and my hair was like floating in the water, my eyes open. And what I kept hearing was harvesting, harvesting, harvesting. They were harvesting the energy from the humans and collecting it. What I saw it looked like, and I don't know if this is real or true, but it was just like this huge chamber. It was circular. It was like a big ball, and they were collecting the energy in here from the humans in the pods. And when she asked me to visualize, like, well, what do they do with this energy? How do they use this energy? What I saw was that there was like a gray that just walked up to it, put their hands on it, and received energy from it, almost like as if to keep themselves alive. And so at the time, this is what we interpreted, myself and my practitioner, as like the inverted matrix pods. And I didn't really receive any other information than that in my session as far as that part goes, except for that my higher self brought me that information because I needed to know how the darkness operates in this world and how I've been taken advantage of. Because that was shocking for me. I didn't expect that going into that session. I had like abduction, aliens, they weren't even on really my map at that time. So I had no preconceived ideas about matrix pods or anything like that. So what's interesting is that my practitioner said she received information later that we originally created these matrix pods for ourselves to be able to project our consciousness down into what was then an organic earth, where we had the life experience and kind of played out the duality, but in a natural way, not in this inversion, in this inverted way that is happening now. At some point, the system was hijacked by outside aliens. So the hijacking occurs. And so where we kind of go next with that is Bonnie's experience, where she woke up in her NDE experience, or death experience, really. She woke up inside of a pod. And when she woke up inside of that pod, she recalls almost feeling like she grew from a seed. And she had been in that pod for a really long time and finally called out for someone to come and get her. Now, Bonnie's recount is that it was like a void space, or like it was just kind of empty nothingness in that space. And it was just like dark and gray. But the way she drew it in her book, her near-death experience book, was the beautiful colors, right? And so I think that the way she drew it with the beautiful colors was actually a memory of when it used to be that way in the organic earth. So at some point it was hijacked, taken over by the aliens, and these pods degraded or whatever. So a couple of weeks ago when you were here, I was having a lot of like right-sided pain, and we went in kind of just automatically to do a clearing, and all this information started to pour through. And what you saw was that there was abductions that occurred when I was young, which I've always suspected. I've never actually recalled any of them on my own or anything like that, but there's always been a very strong suspicion there, because there's a lot of things that don't add up. So what we saw in that was that abduction occurred. I was taken on the ship. And this part's interesting too, because you saw a needle in my arm that was connected to something. Do you remember that?
Was that the one where it was like a chip?
No, you said you saw a needle. They placed me in a chair, put some kind of metal contraption on my head to manipulate the brain, and then drew blood from my forearm, which you said they then put in a system for tracking. So
I remember there was a chip that they had also put in so that they don't have to use needles. Was that something else?
no, that was then too.
That was that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I don't really remember. But go
They
ahead.
they were also took like samples of tissue and eggs at that time.
Right.
To create fetuses that grow outside of the body.
Yes. You started to get bad periods around that age.
Yep. Like extreme pain. Extreme. And that lasted for 30 years. So that's really interesting. And it also connects with and I didn't tell Iris this, but she saw almost the exact same scenario in her regression, where she saw herself in a chair with some kind of contraption, a needle in her arm that was hooked up to a computer. And there was also some genetic fuckery that was going on there too. So it's interesting to me how all these connections are coming in at this time. So this abduction was a result of a contract that my maternal grandmother had made. She was in the military, and when she entered into the military, this contract was made to then, I guess, lend the offspring for experimentation, which she obviously wasn't conscious of, right? But that's
right. No, I didn't feel that.
It's like a default. Like all you have to do is sign up, and it's defaulted. So after we saw that like abduction scene, we were taken to a pod scene again. So again, we were taken to the matrix pods, where you were seeing that there's the fetus that they create then grows into an adult clone. So this was interesting how you saw this, because again, Bonnie said she felt like she had grown from a seed inside of the pod that she had woken up within. This is a really complicated puzzle, really complicated. So what you said was that it's like the being in that pod, who is in essence me, was projecting her consciousness into me and vice versa. Because we're connected, we're technically the same beings. There's a back and forth that goes. And it's like this life that I'm living is a projection of that consciousness. So again, it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah, what? It's true.
Yeah. But that aligns also, like if we are in pods somewhere projecting our consciousness into this simulation or whatever you want to call it, that would make sense.
Right.
So, but it goes even deeper than that.
It always does.
Yeah. So to you, when you saw them, the pods looked like cylinders that were lined up next to each other in rows. They were suspended and standing upright, connected by thick metal wires in between. And you said that the pods, everyone in the pods was like its own collective consciousness. Come here, Colton. Come here. Yeah. And this was interesting too, because we've seen this space before in sessions with an SSP client who's had really strange experiences. And this space, you described it as, it felt like a place that was not on the map. It feels like we're in a facility inside of a void space, which again, there's the void space.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if this is the space that people are going into during NDEs, into the void.
Yeah. I wonder, because like I was trying to use my spidey senses to like scan like where in the world it is, but I couldn't even, it wouldn't stop anywhere because it wasn't anywhere that is known. I think that's what it felt like, a place that is not known to, or to the regular folk or whatever.
Right. And so you described it as like a huge rectangular space with submarine walls. Because there's water involved somehow. Remember, like in our regression with our SSP client, how we kind of were going through these inceptions with the different clones that were there.
Yeah. It's like a different portal, or a portal to like a really complicated labyrinth portal to this void space. That's what it feels like. And so they can't really just tell you that it's, let's say, in Antarctica or whatever. I feel like you have to go through certain places or portals in order to get to this specific space. It can't just be so simple.
Right. Yeah.
I guess if you're actively going there, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. It's almost like it's cloaked. You said that the pods are in a hidden file.
Yeah. And yeah,
It's
if
hidden.
it was, yeah, right.
Yeah. So we met. He's running again. We met with the being in charge of that space to retrieve more information about what was happening there. Do you want to describe that being?
I don't remember what I said. I don't remember what words I used. I just could remember what he looks like-ish. He had like a bald, was he bald?
Yeah.
I don't remember. But he didn't look very appealing to the eye.
I'm just gonna grab Coco.
Okay. Yeah, he didn't look very appealing to the eye. He was wearing a suit. I remember that, like a pretty spiffy suit. Was it navy blue? I don't remember. And a watch. Had a watch on too. What else did he look like? It was a while. I guess he kind of reminds me, if anyone did watch Dark, he looked like Adam in a way, but not human-y. he had a bit of elements that were a little bit different in terms of like what kind of being it was. But he had a little bit of like I don't know, it was different. I don't know if it like I don't know how I described it to you.
You said um it was like he was a tall male dressed in a suit
Yeah.
with a diamond watch on,
Diamond watch. Okay. Yeah, I said it was a fancy watch.
green skin.
Okay, green. But he had like but the way his head was or whatever, it was so bald. But it reminded me of like Adam from Dark, but
Mm,
with a different type of skin. Like it was not human.
yeah. Because you said like he had flaps that came out that were kind of tucked into his collar.
Oh yeah, and then it came out
Yeah.
like a dragon moth.
Yeah.
But I think that was just to be intimidating, maybe.
Yeah.
But again, I met him in a space of neutrality. So he met me too in a space of neutrality.
Right. And he agreed to talk to us.
Right.
Yeah. So when we asked him what was happening here, he said, this is creating projected human life. And as he said that, you said you were hearing the heartbeat of the simulation and that felt to you like a black hole.
Oh, I don't remember that.
You don't?
No. I felt like I was in deep in the abyss somewhere. I don't know where the hell I was. I had to get it. I remember feeling his energy and it was really strong for me, like a little too much that I had to like stay there, sir.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. So what he said was that these clones or whatever in the pods were kind of projecting into us and we're projecting into them. So there's this kind of connection
yeah.
happening. What you got also was that we are the original creators of that space, but there has been interference. It was hijacked and taken over, and it was curiosity that brought them here. This is important. What also came through is that we can choose not to participate in the pods anymore. That it's really only true source players that do have a pod because they are the creator beings. So projecting from that space our consciousness and creating.
Perhaps that's just also from the original blueprint
Right.
because coming here to, experience and then gets hijacked, that type of thing.
Right. Let me see what else. Yeah, because he presented, when we asked about like getting out, he presented you with release forms. Do you remember?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, no. I was like, I'm not signing anything right now, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said you felt that it was not a conscious agreement on our part, that we were tricked into the pods with the promise of heaven.
Could you say that one more time?
You said that you felt it was not a conscious agreement, that you felt we were tricked into the pods with the promise of heaven.
Got it.
Yeah. You see, this is important too, that the contracts are made and renewed all of the time. They regenerate themselves. So we need to consciously remove the contracts like all the time. What you saw in that scene was that my pod was at the top left row on that row. And when we asked if we could choose to leave, he said, yeah, you can choose to leave, but most people don't even know that these pods exist. So how can they then choose to leave them? Right. But he said, once you know, you know. And if you're at the edge, then you're probably getting ready to exit out. And it's weird that you saw that, because I also saw that in my regression. My pod was on the very end of the row. Okay. He said, those with the awareness of the pods have the potential to exit. There's a door. Again, you saw this door that opens that we've seen with that SSP client before. And you said it opens into nothingness, that there's nothingness outside of the construct.
Maybe that's out of the pods and you're in the void now.
Right.
To which you have to find another door or project yourself out.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense, because if the pods are in a room, then there would be a door out. And I remember in that regression with that client that it was the same thing. They were in a room and you had to go out of a door to exit. And when you went out that door, it was like walking into just an empty space. Yeah.
I don't want to be criticizing, but it sounds a little boring, no?
When asked why humans keep reincarnating, he says, because of the trauma bond, the density and attachment pulls them back here. It's a love-hate relationship. They keep coming back because they want to get it right. So it's this idea of perfection. He also doesn't mention how most people are coerced and manipulated and tricked into wanting to get it right. But he's saying that you have the freedom to go when you realize that you can. So
I think we get tricked into by the human stuff, the human programs of this construct. So for those who, who do believe in reincarnation, of like, okay, well, I can always get that or do that again. I'd like to try that again, or I'd want to come back and do that. Like, some of them want to come back.
right. And do it right next time.
Yeah. There's a lot of them like that.
Yeah.
I used to even think like that.
Right. Yeah. So there is an element of consent here. As much as they can manipulate and coerce and trick us or whatever, we have to consent.
Yeah, and it's true. You don't know you can get out until you can get out.
Right. There are cases where people are forced in. Those, I'm not going to pretend that that doesn't happen. Of course, that also does happen.
Yeah.
Most cases, people are tricked somehow, manipulated or coerced.
That could be some deep in like contract stuff, like also with entities. Like, we don't know.
Well, yeah, and most of those cases there's entity involvement there where the soul is trapped. Say eons ago in Atlantis, the soul was trapped and then recycled over and over and over again.
Yeah. I feel like the person who was in charge that we had spoken to is not the same as entities who are fucking up the system. I don't feel the connection whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Because I think the subject of entities did come up too during that, but I can't recall exactly what was said. But it was just basically like there's interference here.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting. Then we have Iris's session. We see that there are abductions occurring, specifically targeting awakening people to create physical illness, symptoms of the plague, through trauma-based mind control and genetic engineering.
Mm.
And these programs are set up in the body to be triggered by frequencies to keep activating the symptoms over and over and over again, which is a different agenda that we've seen in the past. to specifically create that illness, right?
Yes.
So, but what's interesting about it is that there's a lot of similarities in what they're doing there as far as the trauma based, they have no new tricks. They're always using the same thing. It's always trauma based mind control and genetic engineering. However, which way they want to, divert that, they do. So, what I've realized is that a lot of targeted people, whether they have the memory of it or not, have probably been abducted all of their life. They just don't have the memory of it. And so how this presents when you don't have the conscious memory is it presents as symptoms of CPTSD. It's just your system is always in a state of fight or flight, waiting for the next violation, and cannot find peace, and it's like your symptoms don't necessarily align with what has happened in your physical life. So what we're seeing is that there's a lot more astral mind control and programming that's happening than what we're aware of. And I feel that most of what's happening as far as mind control is happening spiritually to people. And that's a really big revelation, because is it happening in the physical? I mean, obviously, yes, but the root of it is really on the astral planes and what's happening, at night while we're sleeping, or when we just have 9 hours of missing time. Like, that's not normal.
A lot of time.
Mm-hmm. And it's really like MK Ultra. And so what happens is they start abducting you as a child, and then they set you up for a lifetime of trauma and send people down a really dark path until hopefully they wake up one day and realize what has happened. And that's what they did to me. And there's so many connections there that I'll talk about at another time. But just in general, especially the people that we work with, they're highly traumatized.
Yes. Really traumatized. Targeted, traumatized.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lisa actually sent me a video last night with Linda Moulton Howe and Tim, the tactical advisor. He's a German guy. I've seen him before. And of course, we all know Linda Moulton Howe, who's been, talking about alien abductions for decades. Now, this was on Gaia, and I guarantee you both of these people are agency people. But that said, there's a lot we can gain. There's a lot of truth that they disclose if you have the discernment to hear it and listen, right? So this just blew my mind, because Linda said, excuse me. Oh, so also in Bonnie's near-death experience, when she initially left the pods, where did she go? She went to a desert scene with pyramids.
I bet.
So this is what Linda said. She's talking to Tim. This is from a show on Gaia. I think it's called Truth Hunters. And this episode was about the self-correcting universe. So she's talking to Tim, and they're talking about the Greys. And this guy has had like 100 encounters with Greys or something like that. He has a telepathic connection to them. So we can't necessarily trust everything he says. You have to use your discernment and take from it what feels right to you. But what Linda said was that she went to the pyramid And she knew, she had this feeling like she had to get inside no matter what. So like her and her husband were waiting in line, and she had to like leave for a minute. And she's like, whatever you do, make sure that you call me so we can get in. So they go in, and she hears a voice, that comes in her own thoughts. Go to the king's chamber. You have to go in there alone. You can't do this with anyone around. So she goes by herself into the king's chamber, and she says she expected to be like blasted with energy, right? I mean, these places are known as high energy places, but she didn't feel that at all. And standing in there in a meditative state, she realized that this was a vacuum. It was an empty space made to be filled with energy. So that clicked for me, and I'm like, holy shit. This is where the pods either are or were. I don't know if it's still active. And
Maybe the frequencies are high, so you can't see them.
right. So yeah, because what I saw was that energy was being harvested into a chamber inside of the pyramid that I saw, which looked like the Great Pyramid. Right. So that blew my mind, because I'm like, holy fuck. So if the pods are in this space, and this is a void, if people are waking up out of the pods into this space, that would be the void. That would be the vacuum. That would be the empty space that people are waking up inside. And then, so the pyramids, all the pyramids across the earth are aligned to Orion, right?
Right.
Orion, Tim says that Orion is the home of the Greys, and says that these pyramids are used to extract the soul and send it back to Orion.
Like buffet style?
Oh
like
my
Uber
God.
style?
Oh my God. What just clicked for me was Bonnie was taken to Orion.
Oh, fuck, yes. You're right. That's what her book's called.
Yeah.
Oh, shitballs. It's true.
Oh my God.
Okay, we're gonna have to get her back on.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah. He said that the Greys told him that they work with humans from the past to use the pyramids to extract souls to take them to the Grey system in Orion. He didn't say what they do with the souls there. But I'm going to show you a video that might explain what they're doing there.
Well, it reminds me of that movie we watched, remember, when we were together? Where they're trying to what's it called? Where they change all the memories and they do the injections in the forehead and all that stuff.
Oh, Dark City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out the essence and how they could adopt it or use it for themselves to be creators or whatever the case is.
Well, yeah, I'm going to show you that video in a minute. It's a 20-minute clip. But Tim was saying that the Greys say that there are pyramids inside of time and outside of time. So inside of time means inside of our construct, right? Like the Great Pyramids in Giza and all across the earth. These pyramids are set up in a system to extract souls. Now, if there are pyramids inside of time and outside of time, those pyramids say that Bonnie visited, that I visited, could be the pyramids actually outside of time. It could be directly overlaid, like you said, on our construct. It's just outside of time.
Time or dimension or whatever the case is.
Right. So they could, while they're being used, not necessarily the physical place itself, but the energetic pyramids, the energetic matrix pods are outside of time, which is why, in Bonnie's experience, she could fly throughout the universe and do all of those things because she's outside of time at that point. Like she said, all of the experience kind of just melded together because there was no time. So
Right.
she's waking up in that pod, not inside, a pyramid on Earth, but something, a place outside of time and of time itself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really interesting. And, he talks about the pyramids being found on many other planets and many other solar systems with the same exact mathematics ratios and measurements. And the measurements are equal to the code of the objective reality. And he also admits, while he says in one breath that the pyramids are used for source to observe itself, he also admits that the pyramids have conflicting uses. So he admits to like the soul extraction thing, then says source uses it to observe itself, and then says it has conflicting uses, obviously.
Sounds like a sandwich of words, like where they tell you the weird truth, and then they give you a nice little compliment to make you feel better, and then they slap you again with something else.
Right. So this is wild because he also says that thousands of years ago, they had a base in the Himalayas. Now, we had a session with someone who saw the construction of the pyramids happening. Remember? And I haven't gone back to listen to this session yet, so I can only tell you the little bit I remember. And that was that whatever they were constructing them for was for nefarious purposes. And it was being done by aliens. And those aliens had a base in the Himalayas. So all of this information is coming together now, and it's blowing my mind. So let me see what else I wrote down. So Tim, who has contact with the Greys, says that what has haunted him most, that was a great question that Linda asked, about the Greys is the feeling of their frequency.
Do tell.
And that there are purely hostile beings that are okay with their own self-destruction and the destruction of everything else, that they are cold-hearted and want everything to be destroyed.
So they sound like a toddler, like a terrible tooth.
Mm-hmm. While also at the same time claiming to have this higher consciousness, which they don't. They don't have, they might have all the technology and mind power in the world, but without a heart, they are lower in consciousness than we are. When we see them in sessions, they're barely even 3D. They're degraded. They have a big head because their mind is big, their brain is big, but they have no empathy. They have no heart.
Yeah,
They
the bodies are skinny.
Right. They barely have a body. They have no reproductive organs. They can't reproduce on their own anymore. They're completely degraded. Some people say that they are future versions of humans, which I can honestly see that. The road we're going down right now with the transhumanism and the obsession with Mars and wanting to live on Mars and all that kind of stuff, and putting technology in the body. So when you begin to put technology in the body starts to degrade. It degrades the human form to the point where you end up like a gray, where it's all about the mind. It has nothing to do with connecting to the heart. They have no empathy and no compassion, which is why the abduction experiences are so terrifying for humans, because they don't care what they're doing.
Yeah, they don't feel it. They're not feeling the backlash like that we were talking about, like the reaction.
Right. Like when you as a human, if you have a conscious, have empathy and compassion for another human, you couldn't possibly hurt that human because you feel it too. But they don't feel it at all. They have nothing. It's literally just like a brain in there. And I was talking to Lisa last night, and she was talking about how she's been shown that they're all going to go to Mars with, Elon Musk and all of that kind of
All
stuff.
right, sayonara.
Yeah, like, see ya. But I could see how I could see how humans that go down that path could end up like that. So it's a possibility that they could be future humans, that have come back to use our genetics because they've degraded themselves so much that they can't house a soul anymore.
Right. Or the place that they're going to, if they do go to Mars, the environment is not enough to do that.
Yeah.
It's not supporting the organism, like the human organism.
Right. Exactly.
So they have to upgrade themselves to adapt to the environment, and therefore you lose certain things like being able to reproduce.
Yeah. Yeah. So the human form is way more advanced than the greats.
And when I feel through like planets or whatever those are, like whatever it is, like if you feel the energy of Mars versus the energy of Earth, like Earth has a heart. There's a heart in there.
Yeah.
I feel Mars and I feel like an
It's
empty sack or something, like nothing, a void.
A void.
Maybe we go there too.
I'm not going there.
I'm fucking going there either.
Getting out of here.
Wherever that is, I don't know.
Um, mm, yeah. So that's just a quick summary of what they were talking about. I'm going to check in on the comments before we move to the next thing.
Mine too.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, Scorchy Torchy. Delina.
Hello, everybody.
Why are you so serious? Super unknown. Sam. Hi, Sam. No, I didn't see that, Lisa. Lisa says, did you see the episode on Cosmic Disclosure where Tim and David Adair admit that the moon is a false construct? No.
No.
Super Unknown says your light body can be taken abducted while asleep as your physical body remains asleep. People don't understand that. Exactly, which is what we're talking about here when we're talking about abduction. We're talking mostly about astral abduction. There are physical abductions that occur, but mostly we're being traumatized via astral abduction. And we see that in Iris's session. If you haven't seen that yet, Super Unknown, check that out. It's the last video posted. YouTube has done a really weird thing where they've separated our videos into live videos and then regular uploaded videos. So you have
the order's off.
Yeah, the order's off. You kind of have to look back and forth. But in our uploaded videos, it's the last session that was uploaded. Why So Serious says, first time live, love your work. Have you read any of Carlos Castaneda's books? Thank you. And no, but I've heard a lot about him.
You've presented some Carlos Castaneda stuff.
Yeah, but I haven't read a whole book. Sam says, I can't remember the tribe, but there's a tribe that remembers a time before the moon and says it was brought there by two fighting brothers, Enki and Enlil. Yeah,
I've heard that one.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case. It could be an old defunct ship or something, like an Anunnaki ship. Okay. So I want to share this video that Lisa sent me. It's about Dr. Malanga's work. I think they said he did over 3,000 like regressions with abductees.
Okay.
So there's a lot to be gained, especially when it comes to the soul and what the grays are using us for. It comes through very clear. So I want to share that.
Great.
I think I have to unplug my microphone.
Is this relative to kind of like what we've experienced in terms of the abduction stuff?
Yeah. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me how the sound is, if it's okay.
Okay.
But one question remains.
It's good.
Why would highly advanced terrestrial civilizations kidnap innocent people for their scientific interests? The answer could be found in the studies of a certain Professor Corrado Malanga. In Italy, Professor Corrado Malanga has been studying the phenomenon of alien abduction for years and believes he has found the solution to this intricate and mysterious question. His insights, however, go far beyond everything that history books have always taught us. University professor and researcher at the Department of Chemistry and Industrial Chemistry at Pisa University, where he teaches organic chemistry, for over 40 years, he has been interested in issues related to UFO research. Research organizer for the CUN, the National UFO Center, he has carried out vast specific research on abductees. During his work, Malanga also uses regressive hypnosis.
I've been getting paid $1,000 a month, if not more.
Oh,
Just
no.
on my phone. And I don't know if you can see this, but it's called Audible. Okay, so I'm going to show you right here.
Hypnosis as a direct research tool in the abductee's mind, but makes the method more effective and targeted thanks to the use of neuro-linguistic programming. Together with his collaborators, he has performed over 3,500 hypnosis sessions on his patients. And with his studio, he provides modern interpretations of the entire phenomenology, as well as a new approach to solving the problems connected to it. According to Malanga, through the hypnosis sessions he performed, his intent was to put the conscious side of the mind to sleep for a short period of time, in order to make the unconscious side, that which is connected directly to the soul, emerge, where, in the worst cases, it was also possible to find an unwanted alien parasite, or its alien mind, which is copied into that of the person kidnapped. These hypnosis sessions that Malanga performed in order to make the abductees' experiences re-emerge at a conscious level therefore seems to have raised the possibility that some of these minds were manipulated by the aliens themselves in order to hide their work. The final goal of Malanga's study, therefore, was to lead us into the depth of the abductee's memory. The place where, according to Professor Malanga, 3 different levels of consciousness develop: the conscious, the pre-conscious, and the unconscious, connected to the id, the ego, and the superego. Using his regressive hypnosis technique, Malanga tries to reach the unconscious in the memories of abductees who have literally removed the traumatic event by replacing it, or without their knowledge, covered it with other images. According to Malanga's theory, the unconscious would be, in fact, like a write-only hard disk, a place in which nothing can be erased, a sort of papyrus upon which.
It's true, the subconscious mind, the memories are always there. It's just a matter of quieting the conscious mind enough to get deeper in there. And then sometimes there are screen memories that you have to get past in order to get down to the real memories.
Mm-hmm. How does one discern through that?
You just have to ask the right question. Like, for example, when we saw in Iris's session how they placed beliefs that if she were to remove that box from her throat that she would die. That's not necessarily a memory, but they place these false constructs within the system, you know. Yeah, so it's just really about asking the right questions.
The observed truth is uniquely imprinted. A truth that therefore would find a way not to be affected nor compromised by other memory substrates which have been influenced by external factors. Therefore, the unconscious would always record everything, storing all of the information, which would only re-emerge under hypnosis or in certain particular situations, such as relaxation, meditation, or spiritual techniques. While examining the various witness accounts he had obtained, the professor was able to note how all the abductees examined could not clearly remember the experiences of meeting with extraterrestrial beings. They only remember them with the passage of time. In fact, deep within these people, a trauma is lurking, which is ready to appear from one day to the next.
So true. So true. Like, I'm 45 now, and I'm just having these memories coming forward of being abducted. And there's not just the trauma of the abduction, but there's usually some kind of trauma, whether that's physical abuse or sexual abuse, or even ancestral baggage that we carry with us that allows for the opening, because it degrades the spirit, the body, the whole entire system, and creates that opening. So like I was saying earlier, like many people that have had been abducted don't have the conscious memories, but their body remembers. That's what's keeping people in this constant state of fight or flight, and they have no idea consciously that they've been abducted. But that's probably more of what's happening in the background. But someone has to be in a state where they're ready to pull forward those memories. Otherwise, it could traumatize them further. You know, you have to be in a really stable place to look at these things, because they can be really hard and scary for people.
Yeah, totally.
These stories that shook Malanga's mind and, at first glance, seem like science fiction, induce the professor to investigate further. In fact, although the stories are told by different subjects, they are all repeated in similar ways and with details that coincide. In Italy, at the end of the 1990s, Malanga received from the CUN, the National UFO Center, the task of documenting and investigating the case of Valerio Lonzi, a young man from Genoa who at the time told newspapers about his abduction.
How to take a normal ebook from Google Docs and turn it into a beautiful flip book.
Valerio claimed that at the age of 15, he was subjected to strange attention from beings from another planet. Reading this newspaper report, Malanga and the managers of the CUN thought that this story told by Valerio was just a simple marketing strategy built in order to sponsor the opening of a new restaurant that he owned. But once they meet, Malanga soon realizes that Valerio's stories are all true. In almost 3 years of study, the professor subjects the young Valerio to all the necessary studies, also using the regressive hypnosis technique. Malanga's final report tells of scars, implanted microchips, bruises, and a complete set of memories and details that are directly connected to different testimonies reported in the American cases.
Waking up in the morning with strange bruises or marks on your body is a sign of abduction.
Super.
Missing time as well.
Meanwhile, in addition to research into the deeper layers of memory, the professor studies the microchips found in the different subjects examined. To do so, he uses a non-direct technique, where the foreign bodies found are not extracted from the patient, as in the American research. Instead, they are subjected to suitable nuclear magnetic resonance analysis and structure mass spectrometry. The results of Malanga's studies are quite outstanding. It emerges that the isotopic percentage of these objects studied is different from that of any other material present.
Can you pause? I don't know why I'm getting on the screen. It says stream unavailable. Are you getting that?
Yeah. What does it say?
Stream unavailable.
Oh, maybe it's because of the video. Ugh. How's
No, I think we got kicked off.
That's okay. Super unknown. Sam. Hi, Sam.
Meanwhile, in addition to
Yeah, they ended it like it. That's bullshit. They're not putting us back on. Did we get a strike?
I don't see anything.
Well, other people are saying stream. Oh, yeah, it says stream suspended for policy violations.
All right. Let's end this.
Okay. Now we're getting into the good stuff.
Yeah, right before the soul extraction.
I bet.